Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Katie Cottonbrook, and I'm the board chair for the Lower Northeast Neighborhoods Association. We represent the neighborhood you're in right now, Northeast Park, and then Beltrami to the south. And we're partnering with the League of Women Voters, Community Power, and 3 other neighborhood associations, Logan Park, Botno, and the East Bank, to help put on this candidate forum for you tonight. Neighborhood associations are funded by the city to help bring engagement opportunities for neighborhoods, and we work in lots of different ways. So if you don't know about your neighborhood association or want to learn more, you're welcome to stop by our table out there, and we can help figure out what neighborhood you live in too if you don't know. But it's a really easy way to engage with your community and help bring people together to learn about things like your candidates up for election this year. And again, we're so happy that you're here, and we can't wait to get the candidate forum started. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Good evening, and welcome to Board 1 City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Kathleen Kramer. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, but not a resident of Ward 1. I'm pleased to be moderating this forum this evening. The League of Women Voters is a volunteer organization with a long history of providing nonpartisan candidate and issue information that is widely used by voters, regardless of their political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by the following: Botano Neighborhood Association, Logan Park Neighborhood Association, East Bank Neighborhood Partnership, Lower Northeast Neighborhood Association, Community Power, and the League of Women Voters. The views expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters nor its co-sponsors endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. We are holding this forum for voters to hear from the candidates and to compare their ideas. This is a forum, not a debate. Candidates are asked questions to which they will respond directly to the audience and not to each other. This forum is being held in front of a live audience at Northeast Recreation Center in Northeast Minneapolis. It's being live streamed to the League of Women Voters Minneapolis' YouTube channel. The recording of this forum will be available in its entirety after the forum and will have a closed caption option available in multiple language. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn in this room and that no signs or literature be distributed during this event. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so everyone can hear the discussion. We also ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so that candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. And finally, let's take a moment and please silence all electronic devices. Okay. All right, looks good. Okay, Ward 1 is made up of 11 neighborhoods in Northeast and Southeast Minneapolis. It's a vibrant community with a mix of residential neighborhoods, commercial corridors, parks, industrial areas, restaurants, and exciting art districts. All candidates on the ballot to represent this ward were invited to the forum, and all are with us this evening. We thank the candidates in advance for engaging in a respectful and civil discourse. Let me introduce you to the candidates: Edwin Fruit, Elliot Payne, and Brian Strawn. We have timekeepers in the front row. Show hands. All right. And so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements of 1.5 minutes, each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer each question and 1 minute to make a closing statement. The timekeeper will hold up a card when there are 15 seconds remaining and a stop card when time is up. We ask that the candidates finish their sentence and stop at that point. We expect this forum to last about 60 minutes. Now, the questions are based on community concerns and were developed by our committee with information submitted in advance from co-sponsor surveys and solicited from the community at large. But during this forum, we will take written questions from the audience until 7:10. A volunteer will gather the questions and hand them to our question facilitators over there, and then to me, the moderator. We ask that the questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand within the scope of the office, and made in the form of a question, not a statement. All questions will be carefully reviewed and rewritten when necessary to make sure that they are directed to all candidates, are forward-looking, not biased, and not of a personal nature. We look for balance of topics that affect all of us, both locally and in the city as a whole. We may consolidate questions of the same general topic. If you feel after the forum that your question was not addressed, please follow up with the candidates afterwards. And finally, all submitted questions are the property of the League of Women Voters in Minneapolis. Okay, let's get down to business now. Okay, for the opening statement, we're going to ask that they address the question, why are you running and what are your qualifications? Each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond. It was determined by drawing numbers that the first candidate to speak is Brian Strawn, followed by Elliot Payne, and then Edwin Fruit. Okay? The order for questions will then rotate randomly after this point. So we'll start with candidate Strawn.
Hello, I'm Brian Strawn, and I'm running because after talking with my neighbors and them asking me to do this, I agreed with them that the current city council has moved so far away from its core responsibilities of land management, permitting, and first responders, that it's unable to address the issues that are facing the ward and the city as a whole. That is housing, livability, and public safety. Matter of fact, it's moved so far away from those core responsibilities that council members can move outside of the state without any repercussions. It is time we get back to basics. My qualifications are, I've pursued a degree of biochemistry at the university, where then I did research and worked in industry. Bench science taught me that if you want to solve problems, you need to leave your assumptions and preconceived notions at the door. I'm a small business owner, builder, and remodeler, and I've managed large projects where I've brought numerous competing views together to make sure that projects can get done on time and on budget. I'm a husband to a lovely wife, and we are fathers of the next generation of Ward 1 and Minneapolis citizens. Thank you.
My name is Elliot Payne. I use he, him pronouns. I have the honor and privilege of representing Ward 1 on City Council and having the DFL endorsement. I first won my seat on City Council in 2021 after the murder of George Floyd. I became the council president after winning my re-election in 2023. I also serve on the Independent Audit Committee as its chair, and I'm also a member of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. I'm running for re-election because the work of transforming our public safety is unfinished. I first started in City Hall in 2016 as a member of the innovation team who helped design and build our dedicated mental health responder program. That program has been transformational in its nature, but it's only one part of a larger public safety system that also needs to include police reform, as evidenced by the state consent decree and the federal consent decree that was, although removed by the Trump administration, the city is still very dedicated on implementing the provisions contained. I first moved to Minneapolis 25 years ago to study mechanical engineering, later went on to earn an MBA, and I want to take those near decade of experience, making sure that we are delivering the vision that our community wants to see in reality here.
My name is Edwin Fruit. I am a longtime member of the Socialist Workers' Party, I'm also a lifelong unionist and a current member of the Bakery Workers Union Local 22. We are for independent political action, breaking with the two parties of the capitalist class, the Democrats and Republicans. Our campaign begins with the world. We explain there are no Minneapolis answers for what working people face here and worldwide unless we take on the capitalist system of exploitation. Rivalries between Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and other imperialist powers are marching humanity toward a third world war. Our campaign defends Israel's battle to prevent another Holocaust. That is the extermination of Israel and Jews off the face of the earth, which is Hamas's stated position. The Palestinian people are held hostage by Hamas, and their national aspirations cannot be achieved without first eliminating Hamas. We also support the resistance of the Ukrainian working people against the war by Moscow. We demand U.S. troops, military bases, and warships out of the Mideast, Europe, and the Caribbean. My party fights for the unity of the working class. We call for a union-led fight to demand amnesty for immigrant workers and oppose the arrests and deportations. Our campaign opposes anti-constitutional assaults by the government on freedom of worship, freedom of press and association, and other liberties that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move to the questions. Candidates will have up to 1 minute to answer these questions. We'll begin with candidate Payne, followed by candidate Fruit, and then candidate Strawn. Okay, here's question number 1. What do you see as Ward 1's 2 greatest challenges and why?
I think one of the biggest challenges in Ward 1 is affordability. This used to be a working class community that was affordable to have a starter home, and increasingly it's unattainable to move into the ward and benefit in all that the ward has to offer our community. And I think that addressing the affordability crisis is one of the top priorities that I have. Another issue that I think is always needs to be grounded is public safety and making sure that we have an accountable public safety system that is responsive to community needs and is delivering on the promise of the reforms that were outlined in the state settlement agreement and federal consent decree.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Fruit?
We think the big challenge for Ward 1 and the city as a whole is to break from the two-party system. Both parties are in complete disarray and do not meet the needs of working people. We think we need a party of working people to begin to address these needs, no matter what it is, housing, affordability, all those kinds of things. We think people should fight like the Canadian flight attendants fought for wages and conditions on the job in Canada just about a month ago, and defied the government, which told them they couldn't stay on strike. And they said, we're going to stay on strike until we get what we want. And that's exactly what they did. That's what working people have to do. It's got to be all of us together, not individuals, that make the changes.
Thank you. Candidate Strawn?
I think the 2 biggest issues that are facing the ward are housing and public safety. I have a real plan to address the housing. The only way to fix affordability is to add more houses. We can provide more organic housing by allowing individuals to pull their own permits and build their own units. Safety is a real issue over here. We've all seen it. The people who have forgotten how to drive, the social contract being broken. My wife's car's window was broken out. The 2nd precinct is woefully understaffed. We need a working relationship with the police. We need to stop the dismantle and defund rhetoric and move into a more whole approach to safety in the ward.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to have a couple of questions that deal with public safety. And the first person to respond will be Edwin Fruit for this one. Okay, here we go. Would you support changing or continuing the current community-driven model for public safety that includes nonprofit violence interrupters. If you support this program, how do you recommend oversight by the city? If you do not support this program, what model would you suggest to replace it? Yes, thank you.
We have had decades of police reform that have not resulted in any meaningful change. The role of the cops is to protect the property and privileges of the ruling class. That role becomes sharper in times of increased class struggle. We are not for abolishing the police while antisocial activity continues, which adversely affects minority communities. It took a proletarian revolution of millions to change the system and replace the old regime's brutal police force in Cuba, where they made a revolution and were able to serve the interests of the working class. As long as we don't make a revolution here, the police will serve the interests of the class that currently rules.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Strawn?
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Would you support changing or continuing the current community-driven model for public safety that includes nonprofit violence interrupters? If you support the program, how do you recommend oversight by the city? If you do not support the program, what model would you suggest to replace it?
I do support it. The violence interrupters are providing a valuable resource. One issue that is creeping in on both the state and city aspect, though, is corruption. So we do need to ask that we see where the dollars are going and that is being held accountable. Corruption is becoming a real problem, and that we need that those limited resources are going to the vulnerable people that need them. The violence interrupter program is excellent, and all it needs is an accountant.
Okay, thank you. And Candidate Payne? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I support a comprehensive approach to public safety that includes police, community responders, and restorative programs. What's critically important is that we hold all of our public safety professionals to the same standard of accountability to our community. The consent decree outlines a three-step process that is simple in nature, but may be hard to achieve. You have to have good policy, you have to train to the policy, and you have to hold people accountable to that policy. As a chair of the audit committee, I'm building out our audit capacity so that we can have that independent oversight of every single one of these areas of safety, whether that's MPD, neighborhood safety, behavioral crisis response, fire. We need to make sure that we have transparency and accountability throughout the entire public safety ecosystem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more question on public safety. Residents are concerned with increased gun violence in our community. As a city council member, what specific policies or partnerships would you advocate to help reverse this trend and respond to citizens' need for a safer community? Candidate Strawn?
So I was talking to some of my wonky lawyer friends. They were discussing how that it is possible that because the state has already passed red flag laws, without having to wait for anything else from the state, the city council could strengthen our red flag laws. The Annunciation shooting, which was horrible, was screaming for a red flag law. These are real things that we can do in the city now, and we don't have to wait for the state. But it is also very important when we talk about gun violence that we need a fully staffed police department. It would be dangerous and irresponsible to think as Department of Public Safety can deal with dangerous people with dangerous weapons.
Thank you. Candidate Payne?
I was there on the day of the shooting at Annunciation, and seeing parents run across the police line trying to find their children was one of the most impactful life experiences I've had. And it felt good to stand side by side with my colleagues on City Council and the mayor and all stand united that we need to do more on gun violence and gun control. We are preempted by the state, but in the day after, we had a press conference at City Hall where we had City Council, Mayor, Representative Omar, and a lot of our local delegation that represent us at the state. And after that press conference, we brought everybody upstairs to put an action plan together. The governor called on a special session, and just this morning, we actually introduced an ordinance to bring gun control to Minneapolis that is predicated on changes at the state level that would prevent preemption.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now we're entering the topic of housing.
I don't think we have.
What? Did I
I
miss
think
something?
Mr. Fruit was it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, last time I did this, I made one mistake, but it was towards the end. Now I got my one mistake right at the very beginning. Okay, on candidate Fruit, thank you.
There's a tremendous amount of antisocial behavior in Minneapolis and around the country. Alienation, drug abuse, alcoholism, lack of jobs, lack of education. All these are root causes of when we see this happening. We're for the Second Amendment. We think people have a right to have guns if that's what they so choose. As a matter of fact, if you go back to the civil rights movement in the South, if black community was not able to arm itself against the Klan and other right-wing organizations, there would have been many more deaths in the South as the civil rights movement began to impact the big changes in this country. The main thing is going to the source of what causes people to do these things, and that this society has no answer to at all.
Okay, thank you. We're working on the questions from people from the audience. It takes a little whatever, so, okay. Okay. Okay, now we're into housing, okay? And what role should the city play in regulating rents, incentivizing affordable housing development, or protecting tenants' rights? And candidate Payne, first, please.
Housing is one of the most complex topics that we cover in local government because the level of need is much larger than what a local government can respond to. We need direct investment in housing. That means things like our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is funded through general fund plus fees for inclusionary zoning if a developer wants to opt out. But I think we need a much more forceful subsidy for housing, and I think we should be looking at our triple bond rating to leverage debt financing to build affordable housing that is also climate resilient. I think that these are going to be some of the most successful strategies that we have, but it's going to take a budget larger than the city, and it's not going to come from the federal government anytime soon. So I believe that something like a rent stabilization policy can help prevent displacement while we ramp up the type of direct investment necessary to build affordable housing.
Candidate Strawn.
Housing is one of the most important issues for the livability of our neighborhoods. The current council's only plan is rent control. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't work. It didn't work in San Francisco, New York, or St. Paul. The only thing that is going to fix this is more houses, more units. I have a real plan to allow the organic growth of more units throughout the ward and the city. We need more housing. That is the best protection to renters. Period, end. Right now, the current council's only out for building more housing is the high rises through large developers. They're first and foremost a financial product for Wall Street. We need to get back to housing for people.
Candidate Fruit.
Housing, like everything else in our society, is a commodity. It will only be built if it profits someone, like the large developers and others. We call for a federal jobs program to build housing, and other needed infrastructure to provide union wage jobs. Under capitalism, like I said, housing is based on profit. We point to how in this system, when they do build housing, they built it on toxic waste dumps and floodplains for what they consider working class populations. This isn't going to change until we have a different kind of system based on human needs. And we've got plenty of workers to build the houses, and there's no reason why they can't be built based on what people need, not based on what's going to make people more money.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And feel free to ask me to repeat the next question because it's a little longer than the other ones, okay? All right. Okay, homeless encampments are a perennial problem in Minneapolis, impacting those who do not have stable housing, neighborhoods, and businesses. As a city council member, what policies and programs would you support to reduce the number of people who are homeless, improve safety in local neighborhoods and around businesses, and protect the safety of those who are homeless? And Candidate Strawn?
We need to be able to treat everybody with the dignity and respect that they need. Allowing these encampments is not treating them with dignity or respect, nor the people who live around them. This takes real work to find housing, medicine, treatment, jobs, and long-term care for who's ever in there. Allowing them to exist creates unsafe environments for them, the communities. There's mass shooting, there's drugs, there's sex trafficking. We cannot just fight with the mayor and have no plan for this. We need long-term solutions and a lot of work to make sure that all of the people in there that needs the help are getting them. All of the people that need the homes get them. This is an issue that is affecting all of us, and it's time we address it properly.
Thank you. Candidate Fruit?
This problem has been going on for a long time, and it will continue to go on as long as we have the system we live under. We are for cradle to grave health care, but under capitalism, medical treatment is a commodity for those who can pay, and medical insurance is for profit health insurance, not health care. Those who can't pay perish. Costs are rising. People are being driven off health care plans. You read that every day in the paper. In Cuba, health care is provided for every citizen as a human right, as one of the gains of their 1959 revolution. But they overturned capitalism in order to create a society for human needs, not based on money. Half their doctors left the island after the revolution, and they had to build medical schools and hospitals to create the kind of system that people really needed.
Candidate Payne?
The solution to unsheltered homelessness is housing. Housing first is the proven model, and the goal is to keep it rare, brief, and non-recurring. City Council has put together a short, medium, and long-term plan for this. Short term, we need safe outdoor spaces. We can't have unregulated people living in encampments where a lot of problems arise. We need to have wash stations, porta potties, and wraparound services that can help get people into more stable housing. We need to have, in the medium term, we need to stabilize our existing shelter providers who are facing a fiscal cliff. And over the long term, I'm pursuing social housing as a model so that we can have more direct ownership and control and have a housing that is sustainably affordable for our community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have a question dealing with transportation. Broadway, University Avenue, and Central Avenue are high injury streets. There is a Vision Zero action plan to address this problem. What should be done to decrease traffic injuries and deaths in this ward? And Candidate Fruit, could you go first, please?
Well, transportation, like everything else, should be easily accessible, and it should be available all the time, 24 hours a day at 10-minute intervals, if that's possible. And the more public transportation that can be provided, the less people would have to use cars. But again, it's not based on what we need. It's based on what the system is, and they're not going to improve the transportation until working people control the society, and we don't yet do that.
Candidate Payne?
I'm glad that this question was posed from the perspective of Vision Zero, because this is literally life and death. This isn't about getting to work 5 minutes earlier. This is about making sure that people survive their commute. We need to have a road diet approach to a lot of our streets, and we have to do this with a climate-aware approach. That means multimodal reconstructions. That means shifting the Strode 4-lane highways that are cutting through our city into more 4-to-3 conversions that actually have faster throughput, because you're not stuck bobbing and weaving. And you have to build these roads for a 50-year timeline. So you have to build it for the future that we want. That means having multimodal users. That means a public transit system that is fast, reliable, and affordable. And that means making sure that we are using our tax dollars well to make sure that those infrastructure projects can serve us over the long term.
Thank you. Candidate Strawn?
As a member of Strong Towns, I advocate for the whole street design, which is what we need. We need a city council member who is going to be over here advocating during the process of all of these large constructions for everybody, the businesses, the individuals, the bus riders, the bicyclists, not to be pushed around by the county and the state. We not have city council members who are arguing for rapid bus transit. This is just a way to redistribute our tax dollars from the city out to the suburbs. It's the worst type of redistribution. We need somebody who's going to be active and cares about how these streets look, are designed, not look like Monroe, not look like 29th. Thank you.
Now we have a question or two that addresses youth and mental health. Here we go. Okay. Research shows that high-quality after-school programs have many benefits, especially for at-risk youth. What would you do to make them more available? Would you commit to funding these programs? And Candidate Payne, please go first.
Absolutely, youth programming is one of my top priorities as a member of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. I voted to increase youth funding, our tax levy to fund youth funding. We are funding through the tax levy additional investments in our new Graco Park and also the Upper Harbor Terminal. But we also have to look at the concept of diversion and deflection. Diversion is after a young person has been involved in a criminal justice system. Deflection is the type of programming that prevents those types of incidents happening in the first place. So we need to work in deep partnership with the park board and the school board to make sure that we have a coordinated approach to how we're addressing youth programming and making sure that we're actually investing the dollars for it.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Fruit?
Education is class divided like everything else under capitalism. The purpose of education for the ruling class is to prepare students to be disciplined, obedient, productive employees, making profits for the rich, and then serving as cannon fodder, fighting their wars of conquest. The purpose of education in class society is to give the educated a stake in thinking they are going to be different and better than other people who work all their lives and to administrate the capitalist society. There's close to 50,000 students in the city of Minneapolis who go to private schools because their parents can afford to send them to those schools. And you know the education is different than in the public schools because you can see what the teachers have tried to do over the last few years to improve conditions and get more staff. And the funding keeps getting less and less and less. Robbinsdale, they're bankrupt, and that's just a system. There could be no education worthy of the name until workers run the society.
Candidate Strong?
I think this is an excellent opportunity to bring our Parks Board together with our schools and with our libraries. I would love to see more, I would love to see an updated 21st century idea approach to some of our parks and libraries, where we have maker spaces, where we learn AutoCAD and Revit, how to program on Android and iPads, how we can have teach kids how to use 3D printers. These would be excellent programs to bring all of local government together to help prevent the children from going out and down the path that is not helpful for them or anyone else. We can look at this as a fantastic opportunity, and Minnesota has always done fantastic with libraries. It would be great to update that for the 21st century.
Well, we're going to have a quick little, what we call lightning round. I'll ask the question, you only can get to say yes or no. Okay, all right? Okay, and we'll do Candidate Strawn, Candidate Payne, and Candidate Fruit. And here's the question. Again, yes or no only. Will you support increased funding for neighborhood associations?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe.
What is it? I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the other questions. Okay. Question 8. We have one more question that dealt with mental health. And what programs have shown to be effective to support addicted residents before they become unhoused? And how can programs found to be effective be implemented to support addicted residents in Ward 1? And Candidate Fruit, can you go first?
Everything's being cut to the bone. Whatever mental health programs there were are going to lose their funding because it's not a priority in the society. People that run the society don't see it as a priority. And until working people run the society, we're not going to have the kind of programs we need. The hospitals are closing. They're closing their clinics. Mayo all over the state. Other of these for-profit hospitals closing, not because people in those areas don't need them, it's because they can't make money off it. That's the problem, and until we end that system of of healthcare being a profit institution, we're not going to be able to fund mental health or anything else in this society.
Candidate Strawn?
Could you repeat the question?
I can. All right. What programs have shown to be effective to support addicted residents before they become unhoused? And how can programs found to be effective be implemented to support addicted residents in Ward 1?
Boy, oh boy. 1 minute on addiction and mental health. This one's going to be pretty rough. My mother was a psych nurse at the crisis center for over 30 years. There are many programs. Some of them are outdated and need to be brought up to the 21st century. There is going to be a meet and greet after this. I would love to get in it with everybody. We need to first and foremost start with dignity and respect for everybody. We need more open and free third spaces. We need to strengthen our communities. There are never-ending amount of programs that work well to help people long before addiction ever strikes or makes their life fall apart. And I would love to discuss more in detail. This one's a bit much for a 1 minute answer. Thank you.
Yes. And Candidate Payne?
I authored a legislative directive to explore strategies for addressing substance use disorder, specifically opiate use disorder. And what we learned through that is that the most effective method is medication-assisted therapy. And there's new therapies that have come online, buprenorphine being the number one, that addresses the opioid receptor addiction so that you can start that transition off of dangerous drugs like fentanyl. But it needs to be paired with supportive services that are beyond just the medication. And so I also authored the resolution that allowed for the city to accept the opioid settlement dollars. Some of the things that we've used with the opioid settlement dollars is our mobile medical unit, so that we can actually go out to where the people are struggling and bring that medication-assisted therapy into the community.
Okay, thank you. And again, this one, you may feel free to ask me to repeat when it comes to your turn to share, okay? In June 2025, the US Department of Justice dismissed the federal consent decree with the Minneapolis Police Department. Subsequently, the mayor signed an executive order committing to implement the reforms outlined in the federal consent decree. As a member of the City Council, how would you support implementing these reforms, particularly when it relates to collective bargaining, just cause, my New York just came out on that one, and arbitration?
So,
Oh, did I say who goes first on this one? Yep.
Yeah.
Candidate Payne, thank you.
So the federal consent decree, the power of that was the federal court. And by having the Trump administration pull out of that, we have lost that oversight mechanism within the federal court. The mayor did sign an executive order demanding that we implement the provisions in the consent decree, but even when the mayor sets an executive order like banning no-knock warrants, that doesn't prevent MPD from killing Amir Locke, right? The way that we have to follow through on the implementation of this is by building systemic oversight into the city. The role of City Council, one of our core roles is oversight, and I've used my oversight authority to both invest in our audit function, of which the mayor actually cut that funding in his recommended budget that I have to restore. And I'm also going to be introducing legislation that covers some of the reporting requirements that are outlined in the federal consent decree, so that we are codifying those provisions in law.
Candidate Fruit?
Well, as I said before, you can't reform the police under capitalism because their role is to protect that system. And until we change the system and have working people in control of the society, that won't change. I said before that police reflect the rulers, and you can see that here just see it here in Minneapolis. When the Teamsters were on strike a few weeks ago at the University of Minnesota, what did the police do? They arrested the strikers, not people trying to scab on the strike. Same thing happened here in the 1930s with the gigantic Teamster strikes that occurred here. The police attacked and killed strikers who were trying to get contracts with the big bosses here in Minneapolis. You can't change that until you change who rules the society, which is the working people. That's what we're aiming, and that's what we need.
Thank you. Candidate Strawn?
We have the state dissent decree that we can use for enforcement. We need to make sure we have a working relationship with the police department, and that the chief of police is going to be held accountable, and make sure that his officers are held accountable to the highest of standards. We need to make sure that they can be fully staffed. Much of the rhetoric out of the current council has made this very difficult to work with the police department to make sure that the implementation of the dissent decree is going to be implemented, and every officer can be held accountable. So we need to make sure that we still have the authority to enforce this through the state, and be ready to work with the mayor to strengthen those.
Thank you. Now we have a question directly from the audience tonight. What would you do to protect vulnerable residents? What services should be added or improved? And Candidate Strawn?
Right now, there is real danger to our immigrant communities. We need to make sure that the law offices that are providing for them is funded through the city, and we need to make sure that that is strengthened, that all of our communities know where they can get the help and where they can get protected. This is very important, though. This administration is looking to fight with the city. We do not need to take his bait for political gains. It is important. It will only hurt our immigrant communities if we are trying to provoke for our own political careers. The best thing we can do right now is to strengthen those legal avenues that the city is doing and make sure everybody is protected from this.
Okay. Candidate Payne?
The best response to a crisis is to have a plan when you're not in crisis. That's exactly what I did at the beginning of the Trump administration. I brought all of my neighborhood leaders together and actually distributed Know Your Rights information, other immigration support resources, including legal support. We also funded legal support in the last budget, increasing that, as well as increasing staffing in our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Services. What we've also done proactively is I authored a resolution giving our city attorney authorization to proactively engage in litigation with the Trump administration when our immigrant neighbors are under attack and when our values are under attack. We've partnered with San Francisco, King County, and Seattle to make sure that our federal funding is secure and that their dismantling of DEI does not trickle down into the city of Minneapolis.
Candidate Fruit?
As I said at the opening statement, we need a union-led fight for amnesty for undocumented workers in this country. 11 million workers are here trying to feed their families, raise their children, and get a better life. And not only the current, this was the same under Obama and Biden, deporting hundreds of thousands of people, even though Trump is accentuating that. He's not trying to deport 11 million people, but he's trying to put immigrant workers in a pariah status so they don't fight for their rights, so they don't fight for wages, so they don't join unions because they're afraid they're going to be deported. We need to have a union-led fight for amnesty in this country, which actually was done under the Reagan administration and under George Bush Sr. There were amnesties given at that time. And it can be done, but we have to fight, and we're going to need a mass movement to do that.
Thank you. Okay. We have a question on the environment. And 2 of the goals of the Climate Legacy Initiative are to weatherize homes and reduce utility bills. How will you work to achieve those goals? And Candidate Strawn?
As a builder, I know the most important things that we can do as for climate change and climate resiliency here in our ward and our city is to update our windows, our doors, attic insulation, high efficiency boilers, furnaces, and water heaters. This is what we need to be focusing on. There are all types of programs that we can strengthen, codify to make sure that homeowners are doing this. This will lead to a real reduction in CO2. It also will lower rents, and strengthen homes. This goes to everybody. This is one of the most important things that we can do now.
Candidate Fruit?
The capitalist drive for profit destroys 2 things in society: labor, that's us, the workers, and nature. The fight for workers' control of industry by the unions is needed to combat the boss's life-threatening speed-up, death, and injuries on the job. The capitalists continue to contaminate and pollute the earth to make their profits. Job safety, consumer, and environmental protection are all tied together. But it's only going to change when the working class is in power. As long as you leave the capitalists in power, they'll continue down that road.
Thank you. Candidate Payne?
We need a block-by-block strategy to go to every neighbor and make sure that we're retrofitting their homes, starting in our green zones, our environmental justice zones on the north side and on the south side. When we passed the franchise fee and dedicated $10 million a year to this strategy, we did that in alignment with the Biden Inflation Reduction Act so that we could leverage those federal dollars to help scale up the type of intervention that we need. Now that we're under a federal administration that is retreating from our climate goals, we need to make sure that we're looking at that franchise fee very strategically and thinking about how we might use the franchise fee to leverage that investment so that we can actually scale up even in the absence of federal support.
Thank you. Okay. We're getting close to the end of our time. We had more questions than we could possibly ask, but we have time for one last question before the closing statements. Okay. And this is from the audience. As part of the city's policy making and legislative body, how will you work together with other city council members and the mayor to improve the entire city? What are areas of strength and what are some sticking points? And Candidate Payne?
As I mentioned earlier, there are these areas of agreement where we just stand strong and united. We stood strong and united in front of Annunciation School. We stood strong and united in front of Edison as we celebrated the Climate Legacy Initiative. We have to find those areas of agreement and stand united to deliver on the promise that is available to us.
Candidate Fruit?
We have to make sure, in whatever differences we have, that we discuss them in a civil way. I oppose the vandalism of Omar Fateh's headquarters the other night. I don't know if people heard about that. We need to stand together and make sure that whatever our differences are, that we can discuss them out in a civil way, unlike what you've seen in the shootings and assassinations and all that kind of thing. Otherwise, the society continues to break down. People have differences. We got to discuss them and talk them out, and then hopefully the majority will decide which view they think is the way forward. And I think that's what we're doing here tonight, and we have to continue doing that.
Okay, Candidate Strawn?
This is very easy. As long as the city council is sticking within its purview of land management, permitting, and first responders, I think there should be an open and healthy debate. I will come with no preconceptions and listen to everybody. As long as we're staying within those things, we should have a debate. Outside of that, I will make it very easy. As long as you say we'll get back to it quickly, I'll vote for you. If you want a resolution to free Tibet, I'm on board, as long as we're getting back to the business at hand.
Okay. All right. I got everyone right on that one? Okay. Now we're ready for our closing statements, and we'll do it in this order, please. Candidate Fruit, Candidate Strawn, and Candidate Payne. Okay. And we have 1 minute for the closing statement.
Socialist Workers Party is running this campaign because working people need to build a movement capable of overthrowing capitalism and replacing it with a workers' government that can begin to organize society on human needs, not based on profit, just like they did in Cuba. All the questions raised tonight have been raised for decades and will continue to be raised in the future as long as we live in the current system. We invite you to join our party. Read our campaign newspaper, The Militant. You can get outside at the table and find out what exactly we're talking about, why we need a movement like the civil rights movement, only much, much broader this time, of all working people to change the society and have a society that's based on human needs.
Thank you. Candidate Strawn?
First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, all of you, and the other candidates for coming. Too often, our democracy is under threat these days. Local participation like this shows that it is still strong, and thank all of you. There are many issues facing the ward, from historic Cookhouse on Central and 18th to street signs and crosswalks that aren't being addressed, to churches that need to be facilitated sales, to abandoned buildings next to Wyndham Park and a grade school. We need a city council member who is interested in Ward 1 and addressing these issues. You will never hear from me as your council member, there is nothing I can do. You might hear, I have done everything I can, but you will never hear me say, there's nothing I can do.
Thank you. Candidate Payne?
I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I think this has been a really lively conversation. I want to thank my opponents here for really participating in this democratic process. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Lower Northeast Neighborhood Association, East Bank Neighborhood Association, Botno, Logan Park. This is where democracy lives and dies. It's at the local level. And the fact that you're as participant, engaged as you are, gives me a lot of hope for our future. It's been an honor to serve as the president of City Council. I would be honored to go back for the 4-year term. We've built a really strong foundation that has put climate action at the fore, the housing crisis at the fore, and transforming public safety at the fore. And with your trust, I hope to deliver on some of the promises that are available to us.
Well, on behalf of all the co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. We hope this forum has helped you as voters make an informed decision with regard to the November 4th election. You've done great listening to the rules, but now is the time to show your appreciation with your applause. And I also have a few final comments too. Remember, we use ranked choice voting for this election where you vote for candidates in order of your preference, allowing you to rank your vote first choice, second choice, and third choice. This method can allow you to vote your vote to count towards another candidate if your favorite candidate loses. If your first choice candidate is eliminated, your vote is moved to your second choice. To learn more about ranked choice voting, go to the Minneapolis Elections and Voter Services website. Again, many thanks to MCN6 for recording this forum and to the Northeast Recreation Center for providing the space. We also thank you, the audience, for your participation in this forum and the democratic process. We challenge you to think about what you can do to further civic dialogue about the issues raised tonight and encourage participation in this important election. You can find nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting at another league website, vote411.org. Early voting for the general election began last Friday on September 19th and will end Monday, November 3rd. A video recording of this forum will be available unedited for reviewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website. Editing of this video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in the campaign publicity, and the recording is the property of the League of Women Voters Minneapolis. Please join us for an informal meet and greet with the candidates. And of course, please vote. Your vote is your voice and your power. Thank you. Once more, let's show our appreciation for the candidates.